and tell you all the cool things you want to hear, except for one thing. This is the 2014 Yamaha R6, and it is an amazing machine. It is just as good as the other big four 600 Supersports. But there's something very different about this one. I'm going to tell you guys all about it. Now the R6 is a really good bike, but when choosing your first middleweight Supersport, and chances are it's probably not for the best of reasons, you know. My dad had a Yamaha. I rode a Yamaha jet ski when I was a kid. My girlfriend got me a poster that I put on my wall when I was 12 that had a bike like this in it. You know, or that guy I didn't like in high school, he drove a Suzuki. We all have these unscientific reasons of why we want to buy that specific brand, or why I'm a Yamaha guy, or I got the Suzuki tattoo on my back. But when you compare the GSX-R 600, the Yamaha R6, the Kawasaki ZX-6R, and the Honda CBR 600RR, they all kind of blend together in some ways. Obviously the colors are different, but the specs are very similar. They all weigh just over 400 pounds, and they all push out around 120 horsepower, and they've been like that for the past 15 years. And to the untrained eye, they all kind of resemble some type of hybrid between robot and bugs, which I think looks pretty cool. So unless you get the opportunity to spend a lot of time on each one of the motorcycles, how do you really choose which one's the one for you? And my answer to that would be the same way you were choosing before. Which one you like better? Which brand connects better with you? Which color scheme you're jiving with at that moment? Which bike is going to attract the attention of that girl you've been too scared to ask out? These seem like very unscientific reasons to buy the bike that you're about to buy, but that's how we do it. But I'm giving you guys the permission to choose your next middleweight Supersport bike in that exact way. And the reason I'm doing that is because you really can't go wrong. They're all really awesome bikes with just minor differences here and there. But if you want to go with just which one's faster, it's all about the rider. Now one might be a little bit more comfortable for you, but if you've never experienced the other one, you're not going to notice. It might be more comfortable for you, but not more comfortable for the next guy. So if you already have your heart set on an R6, or you're leaning towards that way, you've come to the right place, because I'm going to show you some technical specs about it and tell you all the cool things you want to hear, except for one thing. So the R6 has helped moms have sleepless nights since 1999. And every couple years, they do a minor little tweak or a full body and frame change. But this generation was one of the longest lasting models that went from 2010 to 2016, which means there's gonna be a ton of aftermarket and factory parts still available for it. So the R6 is powered by an inline 4-cylinder, which all the big main four bike companies do the same. And even though they call it a 600, it's actually, like most of them, are like 599 cc's. And normally it's under 600. And inside that race design engine is titanium valves. And the fuel injection system is, of course, electronically controlled. Like all Supersport bikes, it's got a 6-speed transmission and it's chain drive. And to get the power to the ground, the classic 180 17-inch tire, and on the front, the 120 17-inch tire. Now, of course, this is a race bike, so this is not really a back seat, but it's great. You can put a girl in the back and she'll hold on for dear life, which is why you have her on the back there anyway. The battery is underneath the seat, and to get to it, pull that back and you get 2 little bolts right there, and that seat pops off. Fairly easy battery to get to. This is your actual tank. Then you get this little plastic cover right here. And one of the biggest things you notice when you hop on the Yamaha, same with the R1, is the front end feels real big. It feels real wide up here, where the other bikes start to get a little more narrow, probably by a couple inches on both sides. It's got your classic digital speedometer, but analog tachometer. And this bike only has 2,800 miles on it. It also has a programmable shift light that tells that you can program of what shift points you want to hit. And the bike redlines this 600cc motor to 16.5. Wow. There's one big thing that everyone's going to talk to you about. Hey man, your one light's out. What's going on? That's not how it works. This is the regular beam. This is the low beam. This is your high beam light. And this big hole right here, this is the ram. It's got a single ram air. It goes inside here, past the fairing stay, and then through the frame to create the ram air. And of course, that's fully adjustable front and rear suspension. So what's the value? What does all that technical jargon actually mean to you guys? It just means the bike is fast. It's really fast, and it's a lot of fun. Let's go take it for a spin. I still need to tell you about that one thing that really separates this bike from the other ones, but I'm gonna show it to you. All right, guys, before we ride this bike, let's do the words of wisdom. That would be James 5:13. Is any one of you suffering? Then he must pray. Is any one of you cheerful? Then he is to sing praises. Awesome. Let's put on the gloves. Hey, guys, we actually might be doing I just ordered a new limited edition set of gloves. A little more than last time because we only ordered 100 of these and they sold out in 7 minutes. So maybe get ready for that. It's been a long time since I've been back on a 600. I'm really excited about this. Now, you guys didn't just see what happened, but here is my beef. And it's not that much of a beef, it's more my personal preference, and you would get used to it after a while. But watch this, all right? I'm going really slow. I'm going really slow. And then I get on the throttle. And for the longest time, right? I remember when the first time I had one of these bikes, I called the dealership up and I was like, it's really slow at the bottom end. Like, I think there's something broken with it. And he's like, feels like you almost can't move. And but to fall over. I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's how they are. And all right, now I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, Sean, I don't want no bike that's slow. It's the bottom end. It's the smallest. You used to have to rev it up a little bit, but it's the bottom end of the power band. It's the part of the power band that you don't need anywhere. On full throttle. Now that's not very fast either. But the funny thing about these bikes don't wake up until up here, to like 10,000 RPMs. I know that sounds crazy because your chances are the vehicle you're driving right now doesn't even go to 10,000 RPMs. It goes to 6. If it's a diesel, it goes to 3. You might think, well, if you're a new rider, this is not the bike for you. But if you're a new rider, you might be like, wow, this bike is fast. It doesn't wake up until up here. And why I'm gonna tell you why it's a problem and why it's not a problem. It's not a problem because that's when you're racing and you're actually, you're on the track and stuff like that. You're not down here, you're up here. It's all high RPMs. It's all high RPM stuff, so it's not a problem. You can be just as fast on this bike as anything else. And in some ways, people might like that. It's easier for them to, keep it going a little smoother and the speed limit when they want to. It can be a problem, and some people it's more of a preference thing. Some people might not like to have very little power at these low RPMs because that's where they like to hang out. If you're in first gear and you're at 14,000 RPMs, you're going 50 miles an hour. Maybe you want to hang out and have more fun down here. If you want to have more fun at the lower speeds and at the lower RPMs, it's possible an R6 is not the bike for you. What you could do is you can modify it a little bit. You can change the sprocket, change the gears, put a power commander on it, and bring that power down a little bit. Or buy like a Yamaha FC07. And that bike is almost the exact opposite of this, where all the power is that bottom end. Instantly. Rocket ship. What an awesome sound. Now this bike is stock. And it's, I personally, if I'm gonna buy a bike, I like to keep it stock. Sometimes, that's not true. I have a turbocharger on my Harley. But some bikes I like to keep stock. I think this bike is great stock. I don't prefer bikes to be, I don't think louder is always better. I think this is a nice loudness to it. I think it's a cool exhaust sound. And I think it's a little more of a sleeper. You can sneak up on people. Fix that mirror. So a couple of unique things that the Yamaha doesn't have that some of the other bikes do have. And the Yamaha is one of the most popular bikes of the 600s. What this does not have is a gear indicator. Now I know you don't need that, it's not necessary, but it is nice to have. It really is. I think it's nice to have a gear indicator on your bike. Well, you get used to it when you have it. Now if I had an R6, I would just forget about it and I wouldn't care. But every once in a while I'm like, oh, what gear am I in? The other thing this doesn't have is, and it's kind of strange, it does not come with a steering damper on it, where most of the other bikes do. Not sure what their thought process with that. Now the R6 is one of the most common, if I had to, from my experience, one of the most common bikes you're going to see on the track. Then we'll do my best. I'll do my best to do a good 0 to 60. I don't launch 600s very often, but you gotta launch them. You gotta launch them high. Like you gotta launch them at the. You gotta rev it out. There. All right, so that was a really bad launch. I don't do it very often, so I'm not. I got to do it more often to get more comfortable with it. But you have to launch these things at like 12,000 or 14,000 RPM to get a fast, quick launch. Where if you're on a 1,000, you can launch it much lower because they have much more power at the lower RPM. So that was a pretty weak launch, but still an incredibly fast bike. But once you're in that top end, then all you're at is in the power band with every gear. Now comparing this bike to an R1 or you know, another leader bike being a 1000, my personal experience is that these bikes are not that much slower up until you hit about 110 miles an hour. Somewhere around that 100-mile-an-hour range, that's when you start seeing that the leader bikes start pulling away hardcore. And same thing with like the Hayabusa. The Hayabusa doesn't start pulling away from like a GSX-R 1000 until you hit like 170-mile range. Oh, what a fun bike. It's so interesting how you ride something like this and you're like, man, this thing, it feels like it's walking at 80 miles an hour, which I did not hit, you know, on the track, of course. I feel like you're going slow at 80 miles an hour, but you jump on another bike, like an FC07, and you're doing 80, and you're like, I'm good, this is good, this is good. This bike was made to do 170 miles an hour. This bike was made to do, you know, feel comfortable at 150. And it does, as long as your tires are good, and as long as the you know, nothing's broken about it. And that's what, like don't fool yourself. This is a track bike. This is a race bike. And if you wanted to buy this thing and cover up the lights, or put a race body on it, doesn't have any lights, or take off the mirrors and stuff, you can jump out there and track it and have a lot of fun. Guys, this is an amazing machine. We'll see you guys next time, and check out Srkcycles. Maybe your next bike is going to be on there. It's not what you're riding, but where are you going? That's what I say.